Why can't Dodgers starting pitchers get out of their own way? It's not just their fault, and it's a very easy answer. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans, welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. This is the daily podcast covering the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. Make that easier on yourself by subscribing and get notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live on YouTube. If this is your first time listening, watching, welcome. I'm Vince Samperio, usually joined by Jeff Snyder, but just me today. Jeff and I have been doing Locked On Dodgers since 2019. We've covered the Dodgers in our own ways for over a decade, and we've been watching the Dodgers our entire lives. And we're going to talk today about Dodgers pitching, starting pitching, not helping themselves out in a few different ways, aided a little bit by some bad defense. Michael Conforto, everyone's favorite topic of conversation. He just hasn't figured it out, and we're getting later into the season. Tyler Glasnow and a little bit of miscommunication and a little bit of hope for him, and Tommy Edman's ankle, which we don't know exactly what's going on there, or we do, but we don't. But let's start with Dodgers starting pitching. Now the Dodgers lost to the Mets on Wednesday. It was not a fun game to watch. The Dodgers didn't score until the ninth inning. They had some chances, but Griffin Canning shut him down for 6 innings, and that sounds another one of those like, oh man, why are bad pitchers shutting them down? But Griffin Canning's been pretty good for the Mets this year. Well, he's figured out a few things or whatever it is, and he's been good this year. So it's not like the Angels version of Griffin Canning shut him down. This is the Mets version, which has been solid so far this season. But I wanted to talk about Dodgers starting pitching twofold. If it feels like the Dodgers are coming to bat in the bottom of the first, losing a lot, that's because that has happened a lot so far this season. Our buddy Eric Steven looked up games at Dodger Stadium, and the Dodgers have allowed runs in the first inning 22 times in 33 home games. They've consequently gone on to score 17 times in 28 total runs in the first 33 innings at home. 17 times they've allowed a run in the top of the first inning, 28 total runs in 33 of those first innings, 22 times in those 33 games the other team scored first. So the Dodgers have been down 66% of the time when they're at home. For whatever reason that is, I don't know. It's kind of annoying to be down early in the game. And for me, it just gives me PTSD of the postseason because it just feels like the Dodgers can never have a clean first inning. Now, have they had clean first innings in the past? Yes, in the postseason. But I don't know. For some reason, it just always feels like the Dodgers are going to give up a run in the first inning. And, most of the time they're not going to score in the first inning. So now we're losing. And it's helped. The Dodgers are a good team, so it's helped them amass the most comeback wins. I think they have 20 or 21 comeback wins this year. But that's not always a stat you really want. You'd like to be, oh yeah, we won, 100 games, 75 of them we were up and never relinquished a lead, and then 25 of them we came back and won. But for this year, this Dodger team hasn't been that way. Starting pitching. And this is a combination of a few things. Obviously, they've had some starters that they don't want starting games, or they, not that they don't want them starting games, but weren't penciled in to start games. We've had guys like that. We've had guys that weren't expected to make this many starts by June 5th. Blake Snell not pitching, Tyler Glasnow not pitching. That's definitely contributed to this a little bit. Not that they wouldn't allow runs first, but they are better pitchers than, some of the guys we've seen for the Dodgers. But the other part, and this is the second part I wanted to talk about, was like, why can't Dodger pitchers help themselves out? Sometimes the defense lets them down. It feels like more often than not with the Dodgers sometimes, because you watch them every day. But you take a look at the first inning of Wednesday's game, and seemingly tailor-made double play ball, Kike boots it. And then Gonsolin doesn't help himself out by holding the runner extra tight at first because there's runners on first and third, and the guy steals. Next hitter, Juan Soto, hits a ground ball that could have been a double play. But since the runner stole second, it wasn't a double play. And then Tony Gonsolin gives up a 2-run homer, and now it's 3-0 in the first inning. Now, Gonsolin settled down and was able to give the Dodgers 5 innings, but why did it have to get to that point? And, there are people listening right now that are thinking, well, if Kike would have just made the play, maybe none of this would have happened. And yes, that's true. But sometimes, your defense picks you up as a pitcher, and sometimes you have to pick up your defense. And it just feels like the Dodgers don't necessarily, at least recently, aren't picking up their defense. The other day with Max Muncy making that error, and Clayton Kershaw ends up not surviving that inning. And it's just like, man, like, it doesn't feel like, and this is a part of fandom, it's always going to feel like stuff is going against your team and not going right for your team. And obviously the Dodgers, they're not as good as we thought they were going to be, but they're still a very good team so far. It just feels like, okay, well, when, the other team makes an error, it doesn't feel like we always cash it in. The Dodgers do cash in a lot of mistakes and extra. Anytime they're given extra opportunities, they cash it in. Game 5 of the World Series is a big part of that. So it just maybe feels that way sometimes. But on the pitching side, and the easy answer of why they can't help themselves out sometimes is because they're not strikeout pitchers. And when you have errors or extra opportunities for the other team, when there's runners on base, the easiest way to get out of jams is to not allow contact, is to get strikeouts. Specifically, Tony Gonsolin hasn't, he had some big strikeout games when he first got on, but that was against, the Marlins. And you only can face your opponent, but that's just the reality of the situation. Tony Gonsolin isn't built on strikeouts. Clayton Kershaw, at this point in his career, not built on strikeouts. So you give guys extra opportunities. That means extra balls in play. That means chances for things to happen. And that's what's happening here. And, there's not a real solution. You're not all of a sudden going to be a strikeout pitcher if you're not a strikeout pitcher. Or, for Kershaw, he can improve a little bit because if he can improve the slider command, he could be better. Gonsolin has shown the ability to flash, swing and miss strikeout potential, command your pitches. And that's the kind of the tough part. And then we have to wait for guys to settle in. And then they do settle in sometimes. But still, now you're down 3-0. And I just think right now this is a pretty much a painting a picture of where the Dodgers are at right now. They need everything to go right to win. They need the offense to perform. They need pitching to perform. They need defense to perform, because everything's not – the hitting's not compromised. They're just not – some guys aren't hitting. Pitching is compromised, and defense is compromised in the sense of they have guys playing not great defense right now. And when those things aren't working together – games like Wednesday happen where you lose and don't really ever have a chance of winning. But Wednesday was, okay, pitching didn't help themselves out, defense didn't help themselves out, hitting didn't help themselves out. But yeah, you're not going to win that way. So ultimately, Offense has to step it up in order to minimize some of the stuff with the pitching and defense. Pitchers, help your defense out a little bit. Defense, help your pitchers out a little bit. It's a lot easier said than done, but I think the Dodgers can get it done. And obviously, there's going to be some things that happen, namely getting some better pitching back that'll kind of help this formation out. But until then, everybody just play a little bit better. It's not that easy, but it could be that easy. Michael Conforto has not made things easy for Dodger fans this year. He's struggled. He's continued to struggle. There's really not a lot of things you can find of why he might have success, and that's the point we're at right now. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is here and helping you out with the NBA playoffs, which is now the NBA Finals, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. So why wouldn't you want to get in on the action? There's no better time. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Chances are you're not a fan of the Thunder, you're not a fan of the Pacers, but hey, you want to be invested in these games beyond just watching. Well, that's where FanDuel comes in. Check out which players, or think about which players are going to show up in the biggest moments. Track those trends, build your next bet. Or if you're, on the lazy side of things, FanDuel has a bunch of same-game parlays already built for you before the game. And then you can kind of wait and see the trends in the game and, build yourself a live same-game parlay. Once the game gets started and you see, I think SGA is going to, drop 35 tonight. Let's go get some on there. And remember, right now, you can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. Something easy. SGA to score 10 points, Tyrese Halliburton to score 10 points, something nice and easy. Get those $5 bets in, get your $200 in bonus bets, and then you can have fun. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official betting partner of the NBA. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day, your last listen of the day, any listen of the day. We appreciate you. We know it's been a little bit different schedule this week. Jeff wants to come to LA, and you would think things get easier, but they don't get easier, and this is where we're at now. So, but either way, if you're subscribed or if you follow us on social media at Locked On Dodgers, you know exactly when we're going live or when our episodes are coming out or what to expect when there are some irregularities in our schedule. So I want to thank you for sticking with us. Let's get into the next thing, which is Michael Conforto, which is not the best or most fun thing to talk about. And realistically, at this point, what else can we say about Michael Conforto? He's been bad this year. There's been times where we've talked about him, and there's been pockets of something that could show that there's some redeeming quality coming from Michael Conforto, and then it doesn't happen. He hits 3 doubles in one game, but didn't really follow it up with much more. He homered last week, hasn't really followed that up with much more. Earlier in the year he's hitting the ball hard. He's just got to change the angle. Now he doesn't even seem to be hitting the ball hard very often, and if he does, it's few and far between. It's frustrating. It's annoying. It's not fun. It's any combination of negative words and not a lot of combination of positive words when it comes to Michael Conforto. And I think one of the biggest things is, and this seems to have tailed off a little bit, but Michael Conforto, any way you slice it, you go to his splits page, and there's literally nothing you can, or not. I don't want to say literally nothing. The month of March, he had a 929 OPS. That was good. Against left-handed pitching, he has a 752 OPS. That's only in 35 plate appearances or at bats, though. Let's see. With only other ones over 700 with 1 out. He has an OPS of 713 when he comes to the plate with 1 out. In the third inning of games, he has a 743 OPS. In the sixth inning of games, he has a 1.204 OPS. Actually, extra innings, he has an OP. He's batting 500 with an OPS of 1.500. When he's batting fourth in the lineup, he has an OPS of 1.805, which has happened in 3 games so far this season. And when he's ahead in the count, he has a 988 OPS. So, again, a lot of those are kind of random. Ahead in the count is obviously a big one. If he could get ahead, and it's weird because he does get ahead in the count a decent amount of times because he still walks at a decent enough clip. But, for a 165 average, his on base percentage is 313. Like, he's still getting on base via the walk for whatever reason. Pitchers are not giving him enough pitches to swing at. But that's really the only way to slice it of how Conforto's been, quote unquote, good this year. He's hitting 165. His OPS is 584. With runners in scoring position, he is, with runners in scoring position, he's hitting 057 with a 358 OPS. 35 at-bats, 2 hits, 10 strikeouts. It's just, if you could find a couple things that he's like good in, then you could at least spin it that way. But there's no way to spin it right now, and it's kind of tough to watch, and it's not fun to watch. And this answer is probably going to frustrate and anger some of you. So here it goes. Dave Roberts was asked about Michael Conforto hitting with runners on base and runners in scoring position and how he can improve. And Dave Roberts said, quote, "I think with Michael, with guys in scoring position, my take is he kind of wants to pick his teammates up, and there's a little bit of try a little too hard in those spots. So at times, I think that he is trying to do too much, and then conversely, I think at times he's a little too passive. So we just got to find that middle ground and find that confidence. I'm trying to show confidence by continuing to run him out there and expect things to change for him. But even today, I thought he had a really good at-bat. I think it was the second at-bat. He lined it to Nimmo. And I thought it was a good at-bat, but nothing that was rewarded with it, but just got to keep staying confident." Now, Dave Roberts is never going to throw players under the bus. He's never going to say, oh, Conforto sucks. He's not going to play anymore, or we're thinking about it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. There will come a point where he's not as outwardly positive, and maybe that's when we get to that point, that's when we know, okay, they're thinking about doing something with Conforto or doing something that involves Conforto sitting more. But yeah, the Dodgers are going to keep running him out there. And no matter how much we keep saying, don't play him or play somebody else or whatever the case, if the Dodgers had I guess it's tough to kind of word this exactly how you want because, it can be not misconstrued, but it can be sent a few different ways. If the Dodgers had a legitimate outfield situation, then I don't think Conforto would still be getting these at-bats. But right now, if you sit Conforto, it means Edman and Ha-Seong Kim are going to have to play, which is not a bad thing. But for some reason, it feels like maybe they're not entirely sold on that. They are giving Conforto a long leash, and it's a 1-year deal. They can get out of it if they really need to. They're still in for it's a lot of different things. Like they're still in first place. If they were 5 games back right now, would Michael Conforto be getting this many at bats? I don't think so. And that's really, prisoner of success. Sometimes you are good enough to overcome a lot of things that are bad, and because of that, you're able to give those things that are bad more chances to try to become good. And within that, the fans are the ones that, get upset and are not on board with it. But that's just the way it is. It sucks. Michael Conforto is probably going to be in the starting lineup for at least the next 3 weeks or so. Then maybe, depending how they get through this rough stretch of tough games, maybe they'll reevaluate. Maybe things happen. It's hard for us to find too many silver linings other than, okay, he hit the ball hard, but whatever. If he's hitting the ball 100 miles an hour every single time he bats and he's just getting bad luck, then yeah, we'll bring that up. But until then, it is what it is. Unfortunately, we're not in charge of the lineup. Dave Roberts and whoever else is in charge of it, and we're gonna see Michael Conforto play probably a lot more than we want to, and all we can do is root for him to be better. Because if he is better, then that makes us happier, and that helps the Dodgers out. So, yeah. The other thing is, 3 weeks from now, they have a better idea. Maybe it's something they go after and start thinking about the trade deadline and trying to find somebody that would improve the team. So that's going to do it for Michael Conforto. We're going to talk a little bit about Tyler Glasnow and the entire situation and why it just feels a little bit weird. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. I want to thank you for being an everydayer. If you are one, an everydayer is just someone that listens or watches every day. We appreciate those of you that are everydayers. We appreciate those of you that are listening for the first time right now, and maybe one day will become an everydayer. It's very easy. You just listen and watch every day. You make it easier by subscribing. You can make it even easier by subscribing and following us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. And you can make it even easier by going beyond the podcast, coming to Locked On Dodgers Insider. All you got to do is go to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. You'll get text directly from us, keeping you up to date with the Dodgers and with our schedule. And you also get an invite to our exclusive Discord server to talk Dodgers with other Dodger fans. Now let's talk about Tyler Glasnow and Dave Roberts and just the last few days. There's been I don't know if it's miscommunication. I don't know if it's misrepresentation of wording. I don't know if it's semantics. I don't know exactly what it's been, but it's been a little interesting. So Dave Roberts spoke earlier in the week, asked about Tyler Glasnow, and he said he threw a bullpen, threw off a mound, whatever it was, and that he still has the general body soreness or not exactly sure what's going on. So he's probably going to throw off flat ground again, and essentially setting it up as a setback that Tyler Glasnow experienced. That obviously gets people thinking about different things. Why is he still sore? Why can't they figure this out? Why, I've seen takes as wild as questioning Glasnow, and there are different things when it comes to questioning a player on the legitimacy of injury or something else. Dave Roberts didn't help that in the sense of what Glasnow said the day after Dave Roberts said this. Tyler Glasnow said that he just had a little bit of a back soreness after throwing his bullpen, but that, let me see exactly what he said. He said, quote, "I feel fine. I feel totally fine, totally normal. My shoulder is totally fine. That issue I haven't felt since I started throwing. It was fine. It really was. Just, I think, a precaution. I felt totally fine. I'm good to go." He clarified that he simply felt some tightness in his back for his first time throwing off the mound. Now, that's normal. I would imagine there's a little bit of soreness when you haven't thrown off a mound and you throw off a mound. And when you're Tyler Glasnow's size, I'm sure, that does happen. So it was just weird. And again, maybe Dave Roberts, it was a secondhand report from a coach to him, and something was lost in that, not translation. Something was lost in that passing of news. Maybe Dave Roberts used the wrong words. I don't know exactly. And I'm not trying to make this a bigger deal than what it is. It's just an interesting thing when you're someone following the Dodgers, when you're a fan of the team and you see, one day you're frustrated that we might not see Glasnow the rest of the season, which is kind of what it didn't feel that extreme, but it felt like, oh, well, we're not going to see Glasnow for a long time. He had another setback. He's still not feeling great. General body soreness, which is a funny term in itself. And then Glasnow saying, "Oh no, it's just a little back soreness. I hadn't thrown off a mound in a while. My shoulder feels great. My arm feels great." And that makes you think like, oh, he's fine. He'll be ready to go once he's, throws a few more bullpens, throws a couple rehab starts, and he'll be good to go in a month or so. And with Roberts, a lot of people get upset with Dave Roberts because of the way he either answers questions about injuries, talks about injuries, downplays injuries, whatever it is. But ultimately, it's funny to me because, if Dave Roberts says, like last year with Max Muncy's oblique, they did the MRI. It wasn't the highest grade of oblique strain it could be. They expect him back at the end of the 10 days. At the time, that's exactly what they expected. And then, 10 days go by, Max Muncy's not back. And, it's just he doesn't feel better. He hasn't improved, blah, 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 blah. Ultimately, Max Muncy ended up missing a lot of time. They had to, kind of break his rib to get him back onto the field. People are going to take that as Dave Roberts lying. And I don't feel it's that simple sometimes. If you, get hurt and you get an X-ray or an MRI and it doesn't show broken bones, it doesn't show whatever, or it shows a low-grade strain, then, yeah, it's a low-grade strain. He'll be back, shortly. And then sometimes it just doesn't go that way. Your body doesn't react the way you want it to react. Things happen, or other thing, or whatever it is. There's different things that can happen with your health, with people's health, that it just doesn't go that way. Because for every situation like that, or when people, or when a guy's arm is hurt and then he ends up needing Tommy John like 2 weeks later, that's not always something that's one-to-one. Like, it's not like Dave Roberts is outward lying. Sometimes that's the information he has in the moment. Sometimes maybe he is keeping it close to the chest or vest, however, whatever that wording is. And sometimes maybe it's just, that's how it is right now. And that things could change. Things can change with health. That's something that's natural. But with Glasnow, this one, it just seemed like a little bit of, somebody said the wrong word, maybe Dave Roberts, or someone said it to Dave Roberts. It felt like it was a huge setback for Glasnow, and then Glasnow downplayed it. The way some other stuff Glasnow was saying, and this, I wasn't there this time, so I couldn't really see body language and everything else. But he did say, I think it's just precaution. We're thinking about the playoffs. It is what it is. I just kind of have to play the long-term card, and I'm just going to have to take it slow. He said, I'm just taking it bullpen by bullpen and see what it is. Hopefully I can face hitters soon. I'm just trying to get out there. I want to be healthy. I want to be in the playoffs. Coming back as soon as I can in a healthy way to help the team in the playoffs is my goal. So, the Dodgers are maybe slow playing this a little bit. Maybe the soreness Tyler Glasnow had isn't enough to set him back, but the Dodgers say, hey, you know what? Maybe take an extra day this week before you throw it. And I'm fine with that right now because the Dodgers are in first place and, they're still there. And even if it takes, a month to get Glasnow and Snell back or 6 weeks, then of those 6 weeks, they'd have to fall pretty far for me to be, genuinely concerned about anything in terms of postseason chances. And realistically, they're probably going to hover around and they'll probably still either be in first place or close enough to first place and definitely in a playoff spot. So no worries about that. What there is a little bit of worry about is Tommy Edman's ankle, because Esteury Ruiz was in the clubhouse. We noticed that Tommy Edman wasn't in the starting lineup against a right-handed pitcher, and Ha-Seong Kim wasn't as well for that matter. So when we saw Ruiz was in the clubhouse, people, it's easy to think, well, maybe it's Kim or Edman because that's why they're not in the starting lineup. It ultimately ended up being Edman. His ankle tweaked it a little bit again, the same ankle that he went on the injured list for. And yeah, this one's a little bit more concerning in the sense of, could this be something that bothers him the rest of the season? Could this be solved as simply as going to IL again? It's one of those things where we don't know exactly how it feels. Is it one of those where this is how it's going to feel the rest of the season? Kind of like Freddie Freeman, where you just have to get treatment all the time. Is this an ankle issue that can be fixed with 3 weeks of rest? Just don't do anything for 3 weeks, rest that ankle, and then come back. Or is it just, hey, I rolled my ankle, I don't feel like playing today? Dave Roberts did say Edman's going to start today on Thursday. So it could just be a little, I rolled my ankle and I didn't, couldn't play. Mookie Betts stubbed his toe, missed a few games, and now he's back playing. So things happen. Again, health is not as black and white as people want it to be. And, I wish it was because then it'd be easy. But I think with Edman right now, the ankle might be in a gray area. And hopefully that's not the case. And hopefully his ankle's fine. Because the Dodgers need Tommy Edman for mostly, obviously the offense is great. He's struggled a little bit since coming back from the IL, but he's had some big moments. But defensively, they really need him either at second or in center because they have defensive issues. And some of those defensive issues are very easily solved by having Tommy Edman out there. It also solves some offensive issues because, like I said, with the Conforto talk, if they want to sit Conforto, Edman's going to have to play second or center. Ken's probably going to have to play second or center. You can move Pajes to left. Like it makes life a lot easier. So Dodgers finish up in a few hours from when this is going live with Game 4. They've already lost the season series to the Mets, so if they do end up tied with them record-wise and they do face each other in the postseason, the Mets would have home field advantage. But the Dodgers, they still need to get wins where they can, especially right now, especially the Padres and Giants haven't been playing great. That's been a big help in this stretch of Dodgers kind of playing 500 baseball or so. But, the more wins you can get, the better. And obviously it's going to feel a lot better when you can beat the Mets. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank y'all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everyday everybody listening or watching every day, which can be made easier by subscribing and getting notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live on YouTube. You can check out Locked On MLB Game Night, local analysis on a national scale every night. Check out what's going on around the league. You can find that on Locked On MLB YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. Remember, with us, you can go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Get text directly from us, keeping you up to date with the Dodgers, and join our exclusive Discord server. You can follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff's on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM us any questions or comments. You can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. Turn my device by a podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.